going. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome once again to the Meat and Potatoes Show, conservative talk and awesome rock. I am your host, Christopher Mader, and tuning in once again to the show is Colonel Reasor, calling all the way in from Texas, proving once again that the Meat and Potatoes Show is nationwide. This is, I'm going to say, his third interview, even though this is technically part 2 of his last interview. I mean, the Colonel, this guy has flown hundreds of Air Force missions, and he could send an AMRAAM through your kitchen window, but he somehow just doesn't seem to get his scheduling right. So we had to cut the last interview short, and so here he is again. Colonel, thank you so much for calling once again into the show.
Thanks, Christopher. Appreciate you having me.
Always.
When you were talking earlier about, your audience being 60,000 plus, I would say that's probably going to keep growing. And the odd part of what we're seeing is as people are turning away from the mainstream media, knowing that it's state-run and corporate-run and ABC and NBC and MSNBC and CNN, that those guys, they all say the same thing about the same way and use the same pictures. As their voter base is dropping, your show is going to become more and more popular as people are looking for the truth. And the truth isn't found in those guys, that's for sure.
Well, the other thing, too, is that it's not just me. I mean, there's hundreds, if not thousands of us everywhere. And there's another return that's happening here that you didn't cover in what you just said, is that a lot of things are going more local now. Now, even though I reach a lot of different audiences through my Facebook postings, and you've seen what I do. You see I constantly post and copy and paste, and I just spread the thing out there, and then I wait a few days, and then I do it again. Because the people seeing it on Monday, might be different people who see it on Wednesday or Friday, that kind of thing. That's why I keep reposting, and I keep cycling the stuff through again. But what is also happening is that people are tuning in more locally. It's like, oh, this guy is in Worcester, this guy is in Austin, Texas, this guy is in, Cheyenne or whatever city or whatever, and they gravitate towards that because what we talked about the last time in our interview about the growth of the Tea Party. And I cover a lot of Tea Party stuff here in Worcester also. There is a lot of local audience, what's the word I want to use, attention being paid to things that people like me are doing. And like I just said, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people across the country doing the same exact thing, and they're covering their local thing. So yes, this gets us back to the original thing that you and I were talking about in the last interview about they can't kill the Tea Party because it is such a grassroots movement. It is the most amazingly growing thing that is going on there, and thank you for that. Thank you for that, Colonel. Colonel, what I want to talk to you about, I want to continue our interview from the last time, but some things have happened since the last time we spoke. You had the primary down there. And what I want you to do is I want you to take over the microphone, tell us about what happened in the primary, where you ended up in, and what's going on with your campaign, and who the hell is the Stockman guy? I must admit, I have not followed this guy. I don't know what's going on. So, Colonel, take over the microphone. Tell us the whole story.
Well, first, how about we just kind of do it literally, if you don't mind?
Sure, go ahead.
What happened was last year, around March and February, there's about 3 patriots, three non-lawyers, non-politicians, non-millionaire type guys, and that was Dwayne Stovall, Ken Cope, and Chris Knapp. Businessmen, just honorable men, and Ken Cope's a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel. And these 3 guys started just running around Texas informing people of what Cornyn has done. And if you know John Cornyn, down here they in the Tea Party group they call him John Obamacare Cornyn because he voted for cloture. He voted down the Fourth Amendment, which is an illegal act. He voted to take the Sixth Amendment, which is an illegal act. So these guys were running around, and what was happening to John Cornyn was his numbers were dropping all the way in close to about last November, that he was even below 50% before anything happened. So Stock is kind of fearful, and from the word I got from his camp was he was very, very nervous because that Texas will push a runoff between number one and number two guy, and it was looking pretty much like it was going to be Dwayne Stonewall, very popular guy, well-spoken, seventh-generation Texan, has a very Texas-centric solutions. In fact, I told people if you're not going to vote for me, Stonewall, Knapp, or Cope are good people. So Big Mike Cornyn, he's got $8 million. Comes back, obviously not all Texas money.
Yeah.
Gets ready to race, and Stockman files at the last minute, very last day.
Whoa!
Stockman is the very last day, and he filed like I think November 5th or 6th, the very last day, the very last afternoon of the last day to file to run into the Senate. So part of me would think, well, maybe Stockman's just an opportunist. He already sees that Cornyn's below 50%. If he jumps in, he's automatically in the runoff. But what unfortunately happened is when Stockman jumped into the race, that's about the same time I jumped into the race. And I jumped in just because I was looking at my life and go, I cannot stand by and watch my country be destroyed and do nothing. I have to look my grandchildren in the face and go, hey, what did you do, Grandpa, to try and save the Bill of Rights? And I'll say, this is what we did. So Stockman jumps in the race. Cornyn's numbers still continue to decrease. However, the national media bites on this binary narrative that either Stockman or Cornyn, and almost totally ignores Dwayne Stonewall, Chris Knapp, Ken Cope, and been doing this, working almost for a year, running around the Tea Party groups, getting them informed. Which I know, my hat's off to those men, honorable men, all of them, better choices than big city, big money Cornyn. So the narrative comes down between these two, and oddly, the newspapers start pushing Cornyn over Stockman. And bringing up Stockman has some questionable past. He was fined $40,000 for campaign for using surveys inappropriately to try and manipulate people in the last election. So Stockman does the same thing, but oddly, Stockman doesn't campaign at all. Cornyn doesn't campaign at all. He doesn't show up to the debates. He doesn't show up to UT Arlington and wherever we are, the four of us are. These two guys aren't. They never meet up. They never debate. Stockman kind of goes on overseas for a couple weeks. Doesn't even spend much of an ad. And then almost right when the election starts, 30 minutes later, Stockman goes, I give up. Everybody support Cornyn. Oddly, Cornyn wins with 59% when he was way below 50% before Stockman gets in. So part of me steps back and goes, if Stockman hadn't even been in the race, I believe it would have been a runoff with Stonewall and Cornyn. And Stonewall would have asked him very solidly, why did you violate your oath to the Constitution and take what is inalienable, and then you should resign? And so that's kind of the narrative, is that Stockman now is kind of a spoiler of the Tea Party movement.
That was a total, you just said it, because I've seen some other stuff from some other people that I communicate with through the social network. They basically said this guy was a plant, and what you just said, yeah, he was a plant.
Well, I wonder what there was ethics investigations of Stockman in the House. They were for finance, and Stockman, although if you look at what he stands for, I totally agree with everything. No Second Amendment, stay off the Bill of Rights. Let's impeach Obama. We need to impeach Holder. He's saying all the right things, although there's very little results coming forth. So it's kind of a showman approach more. And I'm very upset with the House of Representatives. That they have the power to impeach anybody. An impeachment is just a civil process that the House takes to remove you from your office. That's all it is. Now, when you impeach the president, the Senate has to be the jury of that, but the House can impeach anybody. Lerner, just impeach her. Now, when you impeach her, the Fifth Amendment says you can't try her then because you already punished her once, so you can impeach her and remove her from office. And since they haven't impeached anybody, it really means very ineffective. He's kind of more of a showman in that regard. But I like all of his values, but, kind of a showman thing, the media just turned on Stockman and kind of made him out to be a clown, and it was a spoiler. I think, and this is purely conjecture, and,
Go ahead, Colonel. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
I think the ethics charges against Stockman will be dropped. And since Stockman ran for the Senate, he has to avoid the ability to run for the office again. So I think it was probably you go in and spoil the Tea Party movement in Texas, and we'll drop the ethics charges. And if you look back, Karl Rove, Schumer, those guys said we are going to crush the Tea Party, and they meant it. And I really think they pushed Stockman in knowing that Cornyn's in trouble. Let's throw this spoiler in. Diffuse attention away from the real person, which is probably Stonewall in this place. But the good news, there's some really amazing good news. You talked about people getting and talking to each other. I didn't take a single television ad. I didn't take a single radio ad. All I did was put up my webpage and go to as many Tea Party meetings and GOP meetings as I could to just reach out and talk. And just that, in 3 months' time, 20,000 people. Now, if you look at the statewide race, that's not much, but what that means is that, I did not talk to 20,000 people. What that means is people are doing exactly what we want.
Yeah, they came in.
Finding voters to do. Go look for yourself. Go check. And I'm just jazzed. I'm excited that 20,000 people said, "Hey, this Reid Reasor guy, he's talking liberty and integrity and getting back to the Constitution." And it's powerful stuff. I'm pretty excited.
Well, here I want to stop you there because actually, this is the same thing that I've done with my show. I'm not interested in spiking because every time you spike, there comes the inevitable crash. But everything that I've ever done over time, incremental, bit by bit by bit, my numbers grow bit by bit by bit. It's kind of like the stock market. Yes, there's peaks and valleys, but over 20, 30 years, the thing's been on an inexorable rise. It's always on a rise. It always goes up. That's the same thing with my show. You should probably take this the same way with your campaign. And here comes the question. That within the time that you've gotten, your message out, boom, 20,000 people. 2016. You keep your campaign going. Don't put it away. You might have to go to sleep for a little while. You might have to go, kind of because the money's not there and other things are going on in your life. But keep going with it. Next thing you know, you got another 20,000 people. 6 months later, you got another 5,000 people. 8 months later, you got another 3,000 or 4,000 people. It doesn't matter. You're slowly, bit by bit by bit by bit, so that by 2016, I got 300,000 people backing me. Did you see where I'm going here? And here comes the question. What are you going to do now? Are you still in the race, and what are your plans for 2016?
Wow, that's a great question. I've had similar people say the same thing, and since we did not spend millions, and we did not fundraise, and everything was purely word of mouth, internet, forward this guy's message, to keep the website open and to keep Facebook posting and keep in contact with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I personally don't think Cornyn's going to be the senator in 2 years. I think in 2016, what's going to happen is Cornyn is probably going to position himself as the vice presidential nominee for whoever runs for him, because Cornyn is a very liberal GOP. He is definitely voted for every spending increase, for every debt limit increase, for every tax increase, for every expansion of federal powers. Interestingly, he sits on the committees that are aware of the social problems. Like, he chairs the campaign, the finance. He chairs the finance committee with the banking. He chairs the committee on health and human services. He chairs the committee on human rights. So on those committees, he's actually kind of, what I believe, perjured himself to compromise the Bill of Rights. If I were the Attorney General here, I'd arrest him, but that's just me. And say, look, you violated your oath. I think violating your oath should be a felony charge. When you say, I do not support the Fourth Amendment, and I'm going to take it. Interestingly, when you go out and you talk to people around and you give them the military perspective, the history, there is no nation in the history of the world that has ever taken the Fourth and Sixth, the provisions of the Fourth and Sixth together. I'm going to spy on you and then detain you. Those two provisions together, every single nation that has done that has eventually wound up murdering their own people.
Of course,
and it's odd when you say that. When you say that, people know it'll never happen. They go, they didn't think it was going to happen in Germany in 1937 when they did it either.
Of course not.
They didn't think it was going to happen in Japan, and they didn't think it was going to happen in China, and they didn't think it was going to happen in Vietnam.
Turkey, Armenia. I mean, look what's happening in the Ukraine. I mean, oh no, it would never happen. It's crazy talk.
Yeah, it's crazy talk. It'll never happen, and that's exactly, the same thing that happened in the 1962-63 time frame when we established this unconstitutional, quote, separation of church and state, which, I don't want to start a theocracy, but what that was they rewrote the First Amendment and then shut the churches down. And people at that point said, there's no way they're ever going to yell at a valedictorian for talking about Christ or giving thanks to his religion. There's no way they're going to pull away a Annapolis scholarship from a kid who stands up and says, hey, I just want to give thanks to God. And they're doing it today. So, it's interesting that what we're doing right now, we don't understand how these rules will be used in 4 years, or maybe 5 years, or 2 years, or next month. But the history is on my side when I say we have to get these back, or we're going to murder our own people. It's inevitable. And I think, when you send the message that unregulated, unrestricted power always attracts evil, people hear that message. And that's what our federal government is right now. And we have to get back to the Bill of Rights. So when you ask me, why am I considering to run? Because that message has to continue to get out there. First of all, they're inalienable. That means you can't take them. Even if we're in war, you can't take them. Even if we're in martial law, you can't take them. Even if we try to give them to you, you can't take them. I mean, like the 8th Amendment, cruel and unusual punishment. What if all the states said, hey, we'd like you to cruel and unusual punish us? No, you can't do it. So I find it absolutely amazing that we, as a temperate society, accept this death that is eventually going to happen to us.
In all of the many works that I've read about our founders and biographies and autobiographies, and excuse me, I don't have the notes in front of me, but I do remember the saying. I forget which founding father said this, but there is that common saying that even if there is an abrogation of a person's rights, it doesn't mean that those rights still do not exist. They just exist. It's like air. It's like light. It's like wind. It just is, and that's it.
I think you're talking. I think John Adams.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's very well laid out in the Federalist Papers. That they said, look, that's why we use the word inalienable. I love George Bush. I fought for George Bush. If you were to show up at my house and go, Leonard, that's my Philly fighter pilot calls me. Well, Leonard, I need you to run this mission. It's a one-way deal. It's for our country. I'd say, yes, sir. And then I turn around and go, you need to go confess your crime, repent of it, take your punishment for it, and set it straight. So that when he signed the Patriot Act, he opened up a can of candy, and these guys are drunk on sugary power.
Sure,
and
right.
They intend to hurt. They really do. Obama 2 days ago, his basic assertion was, Americans do not deserve to be free. Americans deserve to have central control. Americans deserve to be pushed down because of the excesses of your opulence of our lifestyle. And this free market stuff that you guys are trying, it never works. In fact, the only thing that works is command economy. He said that 2 days ago. So, we thought he would be worse. He's worse. And so that message of tyranny, it's interesting to me that the people on the left keep saying forward. We're going to go forward. Actually, you're going backwards.
Right.
Central control central control over the people, taking your life away.
And you and I talked about this in the last interview when I asked you why, and I kept saying I'm looking for that deeper why. It is. I mean, these people just truly hate. And I don't know if they were beaten as children, or or if it is just their. You can talk about the '60s radical education and that kind of stuff, or being exposed to European-style government. And you and I could spend hours and hours on an interview talking about the history of Alinskyism and the progressive radicals throughout college and progressivism throughout the turn of the century and everything else. It's this weird, it's almost, I'm going to say it, Colonel, it's a psychological condition. It's a syndrome that these people just hate. They hate America. They hate us. There's a term, xenophobia, the fear and loathing of foreigners. Bill Whittle coined the term oikophobia, where it's a fear and loathing of one's own culture. So let's move on here. Yeah, let's move on. I want to talk about Connecticut. And you've covered some of this already in some of your statements, but let's go over this again. Connecticut has just issued a major gun registration law, and come to find out, you saw the postings, hundreds of people in their various towns and cities lining up to re-register their guns. It's so bizarre. 350,000 people have not decided to do this. It's like, screw you, I'm not going to do this. And the state police, there was that state police officer made that, I am your master, I am, he goes on and makes that statement. I'm like, oh, good God, here we go. So they're going to go door to door and confiscate weapons and arrest those people who refuse to register. Now begs the question, and hear me out on this for a second, Colonel. Well, here's where I'm scratching my head here, and I'm going to quite literally do this for the camera. Wait a minute. Okay, I live in Connecticut. I want to buy a gun. First of all, I have to register for a permit. That's data-based. I have to register for a concealed carry. That's data-based. I have to purchase the weapon. That's data-based. I have to wait 7 days. That's database. I had to pay the taxes, the fees on the ammunition, blah-de-blah-de-blah-de, yada, yada, yada. All of that database. So what's up with the 350,000 people who haven't re-registered? You already know where they live. You already know who they are. What the hell good is another form of re-registration? What the hell?
I think you nailed it right on the head, and that is, what is the purpose of having an armed populace in the first place? The purpose of that, and this is what Interpol says, this is what FBI study says, this is what the DOJ study says, this is, even Obama said, look, I want a study that says we need to disarm. He even went to Health and Human Services, some people die, Sebelius, and said, you do a study on guns. Amazingly, she came back and said an armed society is a polite and safe society. And so he went to the LA police, and they came back and said an armed society. Every study says you arm up to decrease crime. So the only reason that they're trying to register is to tax or confiscate. And that's the exact purpose of it.
But what's up with this? I'm sorry, sir. What is up with this state police sergeant, commander, whatever the hell he is? What is up with him making such a statement like that?
I think it comes back to not admitting why those children were shot. I think if you were to look at the guilt factor of it, if freedom would have really been free, if Connecticut had really truly, if our United States had let freedom be free, as soon as those clowns out in Columbine did their heinous act, and just let the natural course take place, there will probably be an ex-Marine that's teaching in that school, probably be a Navy SEAL or a Delta Force or yourself or me or a cop,
right?
Say, I'll pack.
Pop,
And
gun. Pop, pop,
And
done.
you know what? It would have been completely transparent to the school. Oh, it's funny. These guys thought, oh my gosh, when you guys do your concealed carry in Texas, you're going to have shootouts from Wild West at stop signs. No, crime decreased.
Yeah.
So as soon as what it is he's so angry that these kids were shot up. And part of it is the internal guilt of knowing that they removed the gun from the good guy that would have shot that kid and taken him out. And you would have done it, I would have done it. As soon as that crazy guy comes in, we own this gun right at the house desk, you just drop him.
Yeah.
And it's over.
Yeah.
These are our kids. We protect our banks. We protect, we protect our politicians. How can we not protect our kids? And they allow freedom to be free. So, isn't there a control narrative? I don't believe that this guy believes he's expanding big government control. What I believe is that he's trying to handle the guilt of these kids getting shot up and the horror of that. So you have to, quote, do something. Well, the right thing to do is to go to every school and go, everybody who's ex-military police, former part-time cop, here's the training regimen that we're going to do in the state, that we're going to pass through the State Board of Education. It's going to be like a concealed carry class. You're going to go through a little course, close quarters type of stuff. We're going to talk to you about frangible rounds, and then you're going to pack. And that would stop all of this.
Sure.
But I think that's the problem.
Sure. And let me expand upon that a little bit, because there has been some talk, of course it's all gone away now, that, well, let's hire some ex-police, let's hire some ex-military, let's hire some, anybody with gun training, anybody with security training, anybody to police the schools. And of course everyone screamed and yelled about the money, because God forbid we should take anything away from the teachers' unions. I was like, oh, we can't have that. This brings me back. I just finished Newt Gingrich's book, Renew America, written in 1995. He calls upon volunteerism, just people signing up and saying, yeah, I want to step up. I've got an idea. Let's do this. It's a good idea. Okay, let's go and do this. What about just retirees, retired cops, retired militaries? You, me, anybody. It's like, yeah, I'll just patrol the school. I'm not going to walk around in a uniform and be all official and everything. I'm just going to hang out, drink some coffee, keep the school safe, just kind of hang out. But if something comes down, boom, I'm there. And the situation ends before it escalates the way it is. In fact, I even wrote in one of my blogs that, every single school shooting, every single one since Columbine, has been perpetrated by children who have been long prescribed and subjected to SSRI drugs. No one's approaching that. I've covered it in my blog, and it's not just me. I got research from many other people who are writing this, the Medical Institute, the Journal of American Medical Associations. I've done tons of research on it, and that's why I wrote the blog. And this was many, many, many months ago that I wrote about that. But nobody's covering that. And when Sandy Hook happened, and I saw that photo of that kid, I was like, oh, there we go. Yeah, that kid's a fruitcake. He's loaded up on Haldol and Zoloft and Ritalin and everything else. But no one connected the dots. Everyone immediately turned to violent video games. Oh, because we have too many guns in society. Go ahead, Colonel.
Well, the part that the lieutenant saying on your after, I think he is missing the point. The reason that crime goes down when the population is armed is because people don't know where the guns are. So as soon as you register it, that registry is going to be compromised. And I believe it's actually going to increase crime, because now you're going to know the house is not to rob. See, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of having weaponry, is that when you go into a store, there's a probability that somebody in there is a concealed carry person. And so if you pull your gun and try to hurt you,
yeah, there's an unknown there, right? There's an unknown.
Right.
The criminal actually has to weigh in his mind. He has to say, wait a minute, I want to rob this place. And you see it all the time on YouTube. You see it all the time. Oh, so-and-so goes into a convenience store. The clerk pulls not to file charges. Okay, good.
It happens all the time. Now they don't publish how much crime is actually reduced by that act. And Michael Moore comes out and goes, I need to know what every AR-15 is. No, you don't. That's the point. The point is that criminality should be dangerous. And when somebody tries to do criminality, the gun's unknown location is the deterrent.
Yes.
So when you label them, there's a gun here, there's a gun there, those guys are not going to rob those homes or those businesses. They're going to go, hey, this person hasn't registered any firearms. Perfect. And if you don't think the media is going to publish it, that's exactly what they're going to do, because they've done it in Vermont. Do you remember that? They published all the concealed gun
Right.
with Vermont.
Right.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But, they're going to do that. List is going to come out, and then the criminals are going to go, sweet. I know not to rob these places. These are the houses where the people that don't have guns are. It's so stupid.
People even have signs on their homes now. It's like, this house is armed, protected by whatever. It's like, and then they have the sign where it says, go rob my next door neighbor. He's unarmed, he's a liberal Democrat.
How about the guy that has the sign that actually says this house is unarmed and I don't have any dogs?
I know, really.
God,
Now, let's wrap this whole thing up. How would Texans feel about this type of like the thing that's going on in Connecticut? Because Texas is it's a frontier, and I don't mean that in the primitive way. I mean it's still a very stark, independent type of state. How would Texans feel about this?
Well, I think, where we are, there's still a secession movement in Texas still being kicked around the legislature. There's, guns here are part of rural living. Since we have a large rural economy, the weaponry is part, not only part of our lives, but it's part of our livelihood. The other part is we understand why the Second Amendment is there, is to stop a tyrannical government. That's what the purpose was. That's why it was meant that way.
That's right.
I believe truly the next step in this is the states are going to have to start nullifying. And I'm very disappointed in Texas, and I'm disappointed in Rick Perry and Dewhurst in the legislature. They have not nullified any unconstitutional acts at all. And so, as far as Texas being, we're standing up for the Constitution, and we're going to make sure that we don't spy within our borders, and we are going to nullify the National Defense Authorization Act paragraphs that say you can detain our people without a trial. We have done none of that. So I believe that there's a grassroots movement that will be solid constitutionalist. I think the legislature still is under considerable pressure to not stand up and nullify. That's what surprises me. I think the rural part, what I'm concerned about is the guy that says, you're going to come for my door and I'm going to shoot you. No, please do not do any violence to police officers or federal officers. The time when we are going to have to, if it comes to the point where we're going to have to do violence, it will be very obvious. If federal government will use inept or inappropriate use of force and hurt.
Yeah, troops in the street, armed officers in the street. Sure.
That have actually wounded and hurt people. Then it'll be time to actually do that. Right now it's time for passive resistance, and that is exactly what Connecticut is doing, and I applaud those guys. It's like, I'm here to confiscate your weapons. Do you have a warrant? Do you have probable cause? What guns?
Right.
Well,
so, here's the thing, though, Colonel, is they will say, because of the new law, and they always claim the new law. A law was just passed, and it's like you can argue, Colonel. I'm right there with you, sir. We can argue till the cows come home. It's unconstitutional, violates this amendment, that. We can yada, yada, yada all day long about the Constitution. And they're going to still push in the door, and they're going to say this law has been passed, and that's the way it is. And this is the thing, when I was reading Dumas Malone's biography on Jefferson even said that. We enter a boundless field where there is no susceptible definition. And what he was talking about was, we just make up these laws off the top of our head, claim they're constitutional, which they are not, And suddenly they get passed, and then it's like, no, you got to follow the law. And it's like, no, it violates everything that we've been founded upon. But if we argue that case, oh, it's one of those constitutional guys. Tackle them, tase them, put them in handcuffs, haul them out the door. Colonel, I'm right there with you, sir. And, sir, I will stand in front of you, not beside you or behind you. I will stand in front of you defending that. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. This is what is. In fact, I was having a conversation. I was in court the other day. I was arguing a case with somebody that something that's going on private in my life, and I had said to the people there, I said, we've entered that boundless field. This is where we are now. It's just the laws are made up off the top of the head. And the woman turned to me and said, well, that's the world we live in now. And I looked at her and I said, I was like, really? Really? So your attitude is, oh, just accept it and learn to work with it. It's like, no! No! This must be resisted. What is wrong with you people? Go on, sir. I'm sorry.
No, I think you nailed it. And I think you nailed the exact cause. Jefferson's statement, he said that the downfall of America will be through the judiciary. And he was right. He was right on the money. It was what they did in redefining the First Amendment in the 1960s, and then shutting the churches down. That they can't, my pastor couldn't even announce that I'm running for the Senate, and the IRS came down on him. We would not have had a civil rights movement had we had the rules we do today. So you look at the judiciary completely, constantly redefining what freedom is, and the liberals' mindset is, we are going to redefine democracy, and they mean it, and they're going to redefine it into totalitarianism. I personally believe that there are people pushing the Connecticut laws hoping that the Connecticut people will violently revolt. I believe that. The part of what martial law is, that people don't understand, you still have a constitution, you still have a bill of rights. Martial law is only when the military says that they are needed to execute the civil laws. The civil police force are not enough to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. Now, I believe in going back to posse comitatus and making sure that the military cannot be used for that purpose. But I think that it's a setup in Connecticut. And, I really urge people to please do not do violence to law enforcement. The way to do this is to simply disobey exactly what you're doing. Hide your guns, bury them if you have to. The answer is what guns? They're not on my premise. Sure. Do you have a search warrant? Are you detaining me? What charges do you have for me? And this is truly what we need to do. And then other states need to lead in nullification and give pressure to the Connecticut legislature to stop doing this. You're hurting the big guys that are going to stop that bad guys. And that's the part that they don't understand. They are hurting the people who are stopping the crime. And that's what's the frustrating part.
All right, let's move on. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. So I posted 2 YouTube playlists, and the titles are Michelle's Knuckleheads and Michelle's Confused and Bewildered Moms. Well, according to exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. She goes on first of all talking about that they're, because of the health care bill and everything, that young people are knuckleheads. And on my YouTube playlist, I posted something that a young person said, how he just basically tore it apart. Then there's the other one, Confused and Bewildered Moms, that, it's so difficult, negotiating the nutrition labels and everything else. It's like, really? People are, believe me, Colonel, I know that people are stupid, but people aren't that stupid. I am actually the house husband, and my wife makes all the money, and that is what helps afford the meat and potato show. So I'm the one that does all the grocery shopping, and I was listening to her make the statement. I was like, really? Seriously? I'm that confused when I go into the grocery store? And so what the White House wants to do is they think, oh, this is a good thing. Let's keep her front and center, on this war on obesity. And I say good. Let her keep sticking her foot in her mouth. She's doing wonders for the liberty movement. And I would like to hear your take on this. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I think if you listen to Michelle and you listen to Hillary and you listen to how they talk, it is the elitist, enslaving thinking that goes all the way back to the Greeks and the Romans. And it is the way the left thinks today. I'm smarter than you. I know better than you. I'm so much and so better, so right. I'm going to take away your human rights, your prosperity, your property, your ability to make choices. I will provide you with your Maslow hierarchy of needs. Here's your food, here's your house, here's your thing. And at that point, now I have achieved my nirvana. I have achieved my utopic thing. So when she speaks like that, she really, truly believes that she's smarter, faster, more knowledgeable, and therefore justified in taking away other people's rights.
And let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. On your post, and it's on my Meat and Potatoes Facebook page, and I'm going to quote you, sir. I think today's leftist politicians, maybe all of them, use psychologists to come up with carefully worded strings of meaning in order to control. Go on, sir.
Absolutely. And if you really, you were talking earlier about what the leftist objective is, and Michelle's words kind of spell it, and Hillary's words spell it. I believe if you're looking at the total debasement of thoughts and values that make sense. So I'm going to make marriage not important. I'm going to make honor not important. I'm going to make integrity not important. If I remove everything that's worth fighting for, then we won't have any fighting. Yeah, so if you look at the institutions where people are selfless, if we remove all of those, then you're going to have a debasement society that's just taken care of. And part of this is remove what's important, and I'll provide you with your basic needs and assessments. And that's where Michelle's coming from. You can't shop for your own food. I will shop for you. It is the mentality of I have to be your parent, and the government is the one that they're trying to manufacture that. They do have banks of psychologists, and they sit, and these are the folks that are the staff members. What are your buzzwords that you are going to say to provide your social narrative that people accept? It's beautiful. It's beautiful when the president says, we only have one world. I mean, that's an entire rationalization to shut down the Keystone Pipeline. He is saying, if you'd like all you green guys to get involved and attack this narrative of this Keystone Pipeline, that you're killing the world. And that simple phrase is going to use to ensure probably 80,000 jobs are created, millions of dollars, increased gas prices, and meddling in free markets. I think it's amazing.
It's not just the 80,000 jobs that will be created just by creating that pipeline. It's the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs that always show up when you know that the Keystone construction crew is coming through your community and your town. You're going to spring up a diner. You're going to spring up a hotel. You're going to spring up, somebody's going to say, you know what, I like this community. I think I'll buy a house here and stay. It translates, it filters down all the way through. I mean, any major, look at the 50s and 60s. We built the highways. We built the dams. We built all the electrical grids network that's in America. If we had to do that today, it wouldn't exist. It wouldn't exist because of everything. Right. You and I agree. All the regulations and everything else. It would have just never happened. But what happened because of all of that is, again, hundreds of other thousands of people came and says, oh, I'll have a job. Well, what's your job? I don't care. I'm cleaning up the trash from the construction project. I earn X amount of dollars. Guess what? I work 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've made money, saved it. I managed to. Now I bought a house in this community. Now, do you see what I'm saying?
Well, what you're talking about is wealth generation, and that's something the left does not believe in. I mean, it's a fundamental philosophic difference, where the people on the right believe that children are born inherently with sin and need to be trained up for honor, and the left believes that children are born innocent and then they misbehave, which I always love it because I want to see them with a 2-year-old and go, you're a bad parent, because they're all bad too. But they fundamentally believe that if you make wealth, you're hurting something. That's truly how they believe.
Right.
So if we were to put the Keystone Pipeline in, even if there are no spills and nobody gets cancer and nothing is hurt and nobody has an industrial accident, we're hurting people in Singapore and Indonesia and the Philippines because there's only so much wealth. And if we have it, we've hurt somebody else. So the fundamental premise is we don't want you to generate wealth. We don't want you to be successful. In fact, we want to break these industries down so that Taiwan can catch up and Guam can catch up. And as we excel, they get punished. And that truly is the narrative, the globalist narrative. And that's who Obama is, that's who Holder is, that's who Jared is, that's who Clinton is. They will try everything. You know, in Texas, they had zero. Of all the permits we applied for to use the clean fracking technology where we pump the water down with various other things, then we pump the water back up and recycle it, zero of our permits were made. We had to sue them. $10 million it cost us to sue them. And they spent $22 million defending of the rest of everybody's tax money. So we spent $32 million just to get the EPA to give us the right to go get the oil in our own land.
And here's the sick thing. That $132 million you had to spend and sue, that $132 million could have gone to paying people who are fracking, who just move in. And again, just like I said, where it's a fracking farm around there, I'm going to open up a diner. I'm going to open up, I don't know, a dry clean. Because all these guys are getting dirty, I'm going to open up a laundromat so that I can wash all their clothes. It all trickles down.
That's right. 2 days ago, Obama said free markets don't work. He came right out and said it. We tried it, stupid. They tried it in the 50s and 60s, and look where it got us. I mean, if you listen to his speech, or you can probably Google it, it probably says Obama says you can't, Americans shouldn't be free. If you just Google that, you'll listen to his speech and you'll read it. And he comes right out and says that free markets don't work. It actually hurts people. We need command economies. And the guy is a diehard, straight, in the rule, past socialist, extreme communist type guy. I mean, and they believe their stuff. So you being successful and opening a business, actually they're angry about it because you're hurting people. That's how they think about it.
Let's move on. Let's move on here. Jan Brewer in Arizona, SB 1062. Give me a couple of seconds here, Colonel. While half of me applauds her for vetoing the bill based on what she said, simply based on what she said, yes, it's discriminatory. Yes, we shouldn't be putting barriers up. I understand that. The other 50% of me is saying, this thing should never have even reached your desk. This thing should never have even been in the House and the Senate of Arizona. It should never have even been there. Again, it is outside the pursuit of the Constitution. What is not enumerated in this Constitution is resorted to the states and the peoples themselves. And what I mean by that is that this is a private issue. This is a store owner who says, I just don't want to sell to these people. And it's got nothing to do with, oh, you're black. Oh, I don't sell to blacks. That's open racism and discrimination. This store, from what I understand, they tend to be, I forget exactly what religion they are, Catholic, maybe fundamentalist Christian, but whatever they are, they have every right to not sell to somebody. Think about when you and I were kids. You go into a store and you cause trouble. What would the store owner say? He'd friggin' take that thing out of your hand that you tried stealing, he'd kick you in the ass, and he'd say, don't ever come back to my store again. And guess what? You never came back to that store again. Because you wouldn't want your mother or father to find out because you'd get your ass kicked. Now, it comes down to the same thing. You know what? I just don't want to sell. I just don't believe in this. And my business is, look at Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A made their thing, and then, many people came out arguing against them, but many, many more came in to defend Chick-fil-A. This thing should have never gotten even to her desk or never even heard in the state legislature. And I remember what you and I were saying in our first interview. What two people do in the privacy of their home or in the privacy of their lives, that's their business. And you and I both will stand in front of them and defend them to do that. And if anybody denigrates them or persecutes them, yeah, they're going to get my fist in their face because I don't tolerate that. But if I remember the interview, and I looked it up before, you and I said that once it enters the public purview, once it goes out there and it becomes public, now you've entered a whole new realm here. And I want to hear you. I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Well, I think you covered two things. First, let's cover what I believe is moral conduct in our society of the gay and lesbian. Well, I agree. What two consenting adults do in the privacy of the home is their own business. When that narrative leaves the home, it impacts public education, religion, policy, laws based on the behavior in the bedroom. That's immoral, and that shouldn't happen. Now, they will all throw up the research from very questionable research, mainly from gender studies, from far leftists at Berkeley and Columbia saying you're born gay. Most credible, in fact, I would say all credible research from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, say you're born solidly gendered. So, even people that are trying to do research, if you're trying to do research in order to prove something, you're going to get into intellectual trouble. You may deceive yourself. But the history of the gay community is recruitment, and I can speak solidly for it because I was recruited gay as a child. And what happens is you are activated as a child, then you have a trauma in the family, then you're reoriented around the college age. That's the narrative. Now, the gay community knows that. That's why they want to try and lower the age of consent. That's why they want to have outreach in universities. So the history of it it doesn't change. Now, I don't believe they should be persecuted for it at all.
No.
If you choose to do that, that's your choice.
Yeah.
So, but that's the first part. My point to most LGBT folks is you're lying about the science and keep it in the bedroom. The other part of what this Arizona law is if you read it, what it says is it gives the person not only the right to refuse service, but to tell why I'm refusing service.
Sure.
And that's offensive. If you say, hey, I'm not going to make this cake for you because I disagree with your lesbian lifestyle, and here's what God says about this, and this is what's going to happen in the rapture, and you're sinning against God, and you're going to bear it. It legalized the ability to be abrasive like that in public. And I think Ken did the right thing. I don't think it should ever come to their purview. And I agree with you on that. Because what it does is it allows that aggressive rebuke of that person in public. Now, do I believe that I just don't think that's the polite thing to do. Now, if someone comes in and says, hey, I'd like this computer animation. I'd like you to animate two men kissing in your bed. Say, I'm sorry, but I'm going to turn that business down. Thank you for your time. As long as I don't evangelize my position to the immorality of what I believe that action is, then I should be able to refuse that service. But that's what the Arizona law said. You may go ahead and evangelize. And that's why I think she rejected it. I think that was a very good move on her part.
Right. If somebody's coming out, proselytizing about it, that's absolutely, I completely agree with that. But I'm concerned that, again, let's get back to Chick-fil-A, that, just because it's like, look, we're not, we just don't want to get on board on this. And I don't think, even with the people who are making those cakes, even they said, in fact, those people had to go out of business. I mean, now, brings me back to what I said about, you and I were talking about it, now it's out in the public forum. It's like, now you're hurting other people. It's like, come on, guys. You want to keep it to yourself? Again, someone's hurting you or persecuting you, dude, I'll stand in front of you, I'll punch them in the face and say, you have no right to bother these people. But don't force anybody else to have to hey, I'm not allowed to proselytize my personal beliefs or my religious beliefs. Don't force me by law and by mandate to defend your rights also. Look, I'll defend your rights, but I'm going to do that on a personal basis. I'm not going to go out there in the public and defend it. I'm just going to do it on the simple fact that what I see here is wrong, and I'm going to defend that, but I'm not going to stand up. Listen. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead. I was going to go on another point, but I want you to, it sounds like you've got another point, so go ahead.
No, I just wanted to emphasize what you're saying. The other part of the abuse is the gay, lesbian, transgender community that says, I know that's a Christian bakery. I'm going to go into that bakery and demand a cake. And if they refuse, now I'm going to sue. That is what is happening.
That's
so
actually
aggressive.
That's what I was going to say.
Step out.
That's
and when you go ahead. You got
that's what I was going to say too. Is that it's even the one of the presidents of the LGBT IU he she it we they whatever that organization is called. Even they said the president said in a speech that we're not here to talk about rights. We're here to talk about destroying the traditional marriage thing. And it is. It's not about. And if it was about rights, again, you and I, despite your Christian upbringing, my Christian upbringing, I would be like, you know what, you're right. I don't like it. I don't approve of it, but you do. You're right. You have every right to be who you want to be. But keep it to yourself. What they're doing is they are purposely going into Christian areas, conservative areas, and saying, oh, because you're Christian and conservative, you're denying our rights. It's like, wait a minute, guys, we were perfectly happy living here by ourselves and being quiet and keeping to ourselves. Now, poof, out of nowhere, you've descended from space and invaded us, and now we somehow have to accept you, or if we don't, we're somehow hate mongers. And I'm sorry, but, we haven't even thought about this. We don't even care about this. Yet suddenly it's front and center in the newspapers. I think about here in Boston, in Massachusetts, there was a big thing years ago. You got to let the gays march in the St. Patty's Parade. Okay. Scratching my head, thinking to myself, what the hell does gay rights have to do with St. Patty's Day? I mean, come on, all right? It's like chalk and cheese. What the hell does that have to do with each other? But the Massachusetts Supreme Court decided that, blah, 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 blah. Now they have to march in the parade. And I said in my blog, and I said publicly, well, okay, you got to let the gays march. Guess what? You got to let the KKK march. Oh, no, that's hate. No. You want the gays to march, you got to let the KKK march. And then guess what? Right behind them, you got to let the Black Panthers march. And then right behind them, you got to let the Nazis march. Because after all, everybody's got to be equal, right? Go ahead, Colonel.
Right. No, it is. Their agenda is to penetrate our schools and our curriculum, and penetrate our churches and our social institutions, and penetrate marriage, and penetrate our media. I mean, I can't even turn on the TV and watch a simple show without watching two women kissing or two men kissing. It's personally revolting to me. And, I have every right to talk about it, being a previously recruited child in elementary school, and I turned away from that lifestyle, did deep research on where it comes from. And the lies, the most dishonorable group of people I have ever seen or worked with is leftists in academia. It is completely not accountable. They can do what they want to do, teach what they want to teach, research what they want to research, publish what they want to publish. And they even say we are going to use academia and education for social change. Right. And the social change narrative is along leftist, godless, communist, have sex with whoever you want to have sex with, whenever you want to have sex with, at whatever age you want to have sex with, totally having all the responsibilities on society and the government. It's an amazing statement of what they're all about, but that is what they're all about. And it's very tough to try and take academia on and go, you guys are pushing these lies. It's giving the narrative to the LGBT community. And therefore, holding on to this flawed research as jumping onto the 1960s. I'm going to use this as a social rights initiative that I'm born gay. Therefore, you must accept me as a boy in your bathrooms. I mean, how nuts is that in California? That
it
a
is
boy
nuts.
can go, I think I'm a girl, so I'm going to go into the girl's bathroom.
Yeah.
You know,
And you and I talked about this in our very first interview. We talked about the recruiting. I mean, there's a little weird pedophilia thing going on there. It's like, why are you so interested in getting young people? It's like, I'm kind of a little weirded out about all of that, sir. But again, you and I talked about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's how the history of the research is. That's how the gay lifestyle is promulgated. Being sexually activated by the same gender young. That's where it starts. And I'll admit it straight up. It happened to my daughter, and she struggled with it because she was activated over at her friend's house by, both of them were children in elementary school, but it was, and it has wounded her. And I guess my thought to the LGBT community is, how many tears are you going to cause? How many people, how many kids are you going to hurt to push this agenda forward? And it was very hurtful to me and wounding to me to understand what I had been doing as a child, and it's very hurtful and wounding to my daughter.
Would you like to talk about this, Colonel? Colonel, would you like to come into my office and talk about this?
Can we lay down on the couch and I'll pull out my soul?
I'm yanking your chaser. But you make a great point, because my sons, they never experienced this. My sons are in their 20s now, and I was very involved in their lives, and they never experienced this. But I will say this: my daughter, she's 14. We do live in the city now, and when my sons were growing up, we lived more in the suburbs, a more rural area, because of finances and stuff that was going on. We ended up moving into the city, and now my daughter's growing up in the city. She sees that all the time, and we do tell her, well, this is what you've got to be open-minded, blah, 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 blah. But some people have some of her peers have actually come on to, I'm going to say it, they've come on to her, and she resists that, and it's like, no, I'm not like that. And she's even come out and said that it's like, what's wrong with you? It's like, what do you mean, what's wrong with me? It's like, I'm just not into it. It's like sitting down to dinner. Would you like pepper on your food? No, I don't like pepper on food. What's wrong with you? You don't like pepper on your food? It's like, what the? It's like, what? And here's the other thing too, is that it's like, it's never about equality. It's never about equality. And I've researched this, all the writings and the blogging and the radio shows I've done. I've seen this time and time and time and time again. It's never about equality. It's always, and bringing us back to what you said about power and control. It's always about taking over, pushing that narrative, pushing that agenda, and just pushing it through.
Yeah. And now it's cool. It's actually cool.
And then it does. It becomes mainstream, right?
But, yeah. And it's kind of like, wow, some guys that aren't gay come out and say, well, I am gay, just so that they have girls try to convince them that they're not gay. But it's part of the counterculture. Truly, it's so ridiculously confusing that, we lose in all this discussion. You go, what's the damage? And you go, well, the damage to men is that, a man to a woman is supposed to be the totally committed. I'm never going to leave you, never quit you, never trade you in, bear all things, endure all things, believe all things until I'm dead, committed, set you apart for special treatment, and I'm going to honor you as my wife. We are destroying men and making them selfish takers. And that is exactly what we're hating men. Yeah. So this whole narrative is to destroy the natural use of the man and the woman. And the same thing happens to the woman. We have all the sexual promiscuity. It happens to the point where then women learn to disrespect men, which is the number one thing that we need from our lives, is to be respected as men. And it's an amazing destruction of the purpose of us as men and women. And it's purposeful, it's willful,
Yeah.
And it's recruitment. It's recruitment. You know, you go to an LGBT event in the universities, and those who are listening, I ask you to go. Just go sit down. There will always be an outreach commitment form there that says, I will hold an LGBT event once a month and outreach and try and recruit. It's huge in our university, and we need to prepare our kids. You're gonna be at a party, and you're gonna have a woman come up to you and say, wow, you're a very beautiful woman. And you're going to have people make passes at you that you didn't expect. And so we need to prepare them for it, exactly what you're saying.
However, if you and I held a Tea Party meeting or a ultra-conservative, right-wing Republican type of meeting, and we asked people, oh, come on for the coffee afterwards, and we want to talk to you. Believe me, the left would be like, oh, they have recruitment meetings. How evil these Republicans are. How dare they talk about Constitution and liberty? Colonel, thank you so much, sir, for coming on to the show again. I always enjoy our conversations. What are your plans? I mean, now that the primaries are, what's going on with you? What are your plans?
Well, I'm driving today up to Dallas. I met a guy in the Tea Party that got hurt, so I'm going to go up and visit him in the hospital, and then I'm meeting with some Tea Party leaders in Dallas, and we're just going to keep doing exactly what you're doing right now, and that's getting people off mainstream news, getting them informed about what's happening, reaching out to other people, pick a local issue that you can fight and keep fighting. You know, it frustrates me that only 25% of our Christian community voted last time because, it's the end times, you just got to suck it up. No, it's not. Get out there and get off the news, get people informed, meet other passionate people, and we can take our country back. And people like you are helping, and I really appreciate it, Christopher. Thank you so much.
Anytime, Colonel. Colonel, you're a permanent guest on the show for this year, so what the hell? And I just wish you the best of luck, sir. And I will keep in touch with me, and I will touch base again with you, and we'll book you again for the show. And because God only knows the election season is underway, and anything and everything can happen over this next year. So, Colonel, ladies and gentlemen, Meat and Potato Show, are you a former or are you still in the race, Republican senatorial candidate?
Well, as soon as you lose in the primary, you're done. So
yeah, you're
done.
Yeah.
I'm doing what you're doing, getting people informed.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep you on. We're going to keep you on and keep talking about that because I just love your candor, and I just love speaking with people like you. So, Colonel, thank you so much. Thank you for coming back on. Thank you for completing the interview. And I think we covered everything. And I'll hit you up on the line. March is booked up. April is filling up fast, so I'll probably have you back on sometime in May. By then, the election season should be well underway. God knows we're going to hear a lot of BS. So I'll talk to you then. Colonel, thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Damn, that's too bad. That's too bad that happened. Because there's 3 interviews that I had with this guy. Everything he talked about was spot on. Everything he talked about was spot on. The first interview, the second interrupted interview, and then this one, the third. It's rigged. You can see that it's rigged. It's all rigged. The entire system is rigged. I'm going to say some things. I don't want to say them. I don't want them out there public. I think my audience knows how I feel. Time. Thank you.